I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. Because what happened to me could happen to anyone. I couldn't breathe. Not just from the broken ribs, though God knows the pain was blinding, but from the absolute horror of what had just happened. My son, my baby boy, Daniel, he had just slammed me against my own kitchen counter, and I heard something crack inside my chest. "Learn your place, mother," he hissed in my ear before dragging me toward the basement door. His hands, the same hands I used to hold when crossing the street, the same hands I'd taught to tie shoelaces when he was 5, were bruising my arms. As Vanessa stood there in my kitchen wearing my late mother's pearl necklace, watching with that cold smile on her perfectly made-up face. The basement door slammed shut. I heard the deadbolt slide into place from outside. Complete darkness swallowed me, and the pain in my chest was so sharp I thought I might pass out. But then the adrenaline kicked in, cutting through the agony just enough for me to think clearly. They didn't know about the old phone. The one Richard had left in his workshop down here just in case. The one I kept charged, hidden behind the paint cans because my late husband had always believed in backup plans. My fingers were shaking so badly I could barely pull it out. Every movement sent fire through my ribs. But I managed to dial the number. Thomas Brennan, my late husband's law partner, Richard's best friend, the attorney I hadn't needed to call since Richard's estate was settled 3 years ago. The phone rang twice. "Ava?" Thomas's voice came through confused. It was 8 o'clock on a Friday night. My birthday, actually. My 68th birthday. "Thomas," I whispered, my voice cracking with pain and tears. "I need help. Daniel and Vanessa, they've been stealing from me. And Daniel just—" I gasped as another wave of pain shot through my chest. "He broke my ribs. I'm locked in the basement." There was a beat of stunned silence. Then his voice came back sharp and deadly serious. "Don't move. Don't make another sound. I'm calling the police right now and I'm on my way. Stay on the line with me." Upstairs, I could hear Daniel and Vanessa laughing. Actually laughing. Vanessa was saying something about finally having the house keys and the old bat won't dare call anyone. That's when I heard it. The sirens. Faint at first, then growing louder. "Thomas," I whispered into the phone. "What did you do?" "Everything," he replied, and I could hear the fury in his voice. "Police ambulance and I called Judge Morrison. He owes Richard's memory a favor. Hold on, Ava. Just hold on." The sirens stopped right outside my house. Doors slammed. Then I heard the pounding on my front door and the most beautiful words I'd ever heard. "Police, open up." Upstairs, Vanessa screamed. Daniel was shouting. Furniture scraped across the floor. And down here, locked in my basement with broken ribs on my 68th birthday, I smiled through the tears. Because for the first time in months, maybe years, I wasn't alone and helpless anymore. But let me back up and tell you how I ended up here, locked in my own basement, by the son I raised with everything I had. Because this story, it started exactly 3 years ago on the day I became rich and alone. 3 years ago, I became a widow. Richard died of a sudden heart attack at 67, right in the middle of arguing a case he was passionate about. The doctor said he didn't suffer, but I did. We'd been married for 42 years, and suddenly I was alone in our big Victorian house, with nothing but memories and more money than I knew what to do with. Richard had been a successful attorney. Between his practice, our investments, and the life insurance, I found myself with assets worth over $2.3 million. The house was paid off. I had a comfortable pension from my teaching career, $3,200 a month. I didn't need to worry about money, which should have been a comfort. Instead, it made me a target. I just didn't know that yet. For the first 2 years, Daniel was wonderful. My only child, 42 years old, a lawyer like his father, though not quite as successful if I'm being honest. He'd call every week, visit every couple of weeks with Vanessa, his wife of 5 years. They seemed genuinely concerned about me. "Mom, are you eating enough?" Daniel would ask, looking around my kitchen with worried eyes. "Mom, this house is too big for you," Vanessa would add, touching my arm with what I thought was sympathy. "Have you thought about downsizing?" I appreciated their concern, or at least I thought I did. Looking back now, I can see how stupid I was, how blind. Vanessa was always beautifully dressed when she came over. Designer bags, expensive shoes, fresh manicures every week. She'd worked in real estate before marrying Daniel, but she'd stopped working after the wedding. "Daniel takes such good care of me," she'd say with that bright smile showing off whatever new piece of jewelry she was wearing. I thought she was lucky. I thought my son had married someone who appreciated him. I should have asked myself where all that money was coming from. David's law practice was small, and he'd mentioned more than once that clients were hard to come by. But I didn't ask. I didn't want to pry into my son's finances. That felt invasive, disrespectful somehow. God, I was such a fool. The strange sign started about 8 months ago, right around last Christmas. Vanessa came over to help me organize Richard's old files or so, she said. It's time, she'd insisted. Time to let go of some of Richard's things, to move forward with your life. I'd left her alone in the study for maybe 20 minutes while I made tea and arranged some cookies on a plate, those chocolate chip ones Daniel had loved as a boy. When I came back, she was closing the filing cabinet quickly, looking flushed. Her hands moved too fast, and I heard the drawer slam shut. Just straightening things out, she said brightly, smoothing down her cashmere sweater, Burberry, I noticed. That sweater probably cost more than my electric bill. You know, Ava, you really should think about putting important documents in a safe deposit box. What if something happened, a fire or a break-in? At the time, I thought she was being thoughtful, practical even. Now I know she was casing my files, figuring out what I had and where I kept it. Then Daniel started asking questions. Casual at first, slipped into normal conversation like they didn't mean anything. Mom, how much is in your savings these days? Just want to make sure you're financially secure. Mom, have you updated your will since Dad died? You really should. Things change. Mom, you know I'm still listed as your power of attorney from when Dad was sick, right? Just in case you ever need help managing things. That last one made me pause. I didn't remember making Daniel my power of attorney. Richard had handled all our legal documents, and I was pretty sure we'd set up our estate so everything went to me automatically when he died. But my memory wasn't what it used to be. Or so I thought. Maybe I'd forgotten. Maybe I'd signed something during those awful final weeks when Richard was in the hospital and I was barely sleeping, barely eating, just trying to hold myself together. Let me check on that, I said carefully. Daniel's jaw tightened just for a second. Just a flicker of something dark crossing his face. But I saw it. Then he smiled. Of course, Mom. No pressure. Just want to make sure you're protected. In January, they strongly suggested that I add Daniel as a joint account holder on my main checking account. We were having dinner at their house in their beautiful dining room with the crystal chandelier and the art on the walls. Vanessa brought it up while serving dessert apple pie store-bought, despite her claims of being so domestic. Just for emergencies, Ava, she said, setting a piece in front of me. What if you fall and can't access your money? What if something happens and we need to pay your bills? We'd have no way to help you. It made sense. It sounded reasonable. I almost did it. But something, maybe Richard's voice in the back of my mind, maybe just instinct, made me hesitate. Let me think about it, I said. Daniel's smile faltered. Mom, why do you need to think about it? We're just trying to help you. I know, sweetheart. I just need a few days to consider it. It's a big step. The temperature in the room dropped about 10 degrees. Vanessa's smile became fixed plastic. Daniel pushed his pie away like he'd suddenly lost his appetite. Of course, he said stiffly. Take your time. But there was pressure after that. Text messages, phone calls. Have you thought about the account? We really think it's important, Mom. Dad would want you to be protected. That last one made me angry, though I didn't show it. Don't bring Richard into this, I wanted to say. Don't use your dead father to manipulate me. But I kept quiet. I still wanted to believe my son had good intentions. Vanessa started dropping by more often, always when Daniel was supposedly at work. She'd ask to borrow things, my mother's pearl necklace for a charity gala, my grandmother's gold brooch for a wedding, a pair of diamond earrings Richard had given me for our 30th anniversary. I'll bring them back next week, she'd promise. I just need them for this one event. I always said yes. Why wouldn't I? She was family. She was my daughter-in-law, and I wanted her to like me, wanted to have a good relationship with my son's wife. She never returned a single piece, not one. In February, I noticed my mail was arriving opened. Bills, bank statements. The envelopes were slit carefully, but definitely opened. When I mentioned it to Daniel during dinner at their place, he laughed it off. Mom, the postal service is terrible lately. Everyone's complaining about damaged mail. You should file a complaint with the post office. Vanessa nodded sympathetically, reaching across the table to pat my hand. Her nails were freshly done gel manicure French tips, probably $60. You know, Ava, you should really sign up for online banking. Paper statements are so unreliable. Plus, they can get stolen from your mailbox. Identity theft is everywhere these days. I didn't want online banking. I liked seeing my statements, holding them in my hands, filing them away properly the way Richard and I had always done. But they kept insisting. They even offered to set it up for me to teach me how to use it. I said no. Daniel's eyes flashed with something I'd never seen before. Something cold and calculating. But then he smiled. Whatever you want, Mom. We're just worried about you. Then came my birthday planning in March. I was turning 68 on April 15th, and Daniel called to suggest having a small celebration at my house. Just family, Mom. We'll bring everything. You don't have to do anything, just relax and let us take care of you for once. That should have been my first major warning. Daniel had never planned a birthday party for me in his adult life. Not once. He usually sent a card and called, and that was fine. I didn't need a fuss. But suddenly he wanted to throw me a party. I should have questioned it. I should have wondered why. But I was lonely, and the idea of having family around on my birthday, on what would be my third birthday without Richard, sounded nice. So I said yes. A week before my birthday, I went to the bank to withdraw some cash. I wanted to make a donation to the library in Richard's memory. $5,000 to fund a reading program for underprivileged kids. It was something Richard would have loved. He'd always believed education was the key to everything, the way out of poverty, the path to a better life. I walked into First National Bank on a Thursday morning, the same bank Richard and I had used for 40 years. Jenny Martinez was working the teller counter. I'd known her since she was a teenager. She smiled when she saw me. "Mrs. Morrison, how are you doing?" "I'm well, Jenny. I'd like to withdraw $5,000, please. Cash." She typed something into her computer and her smile faded. A small crease appeared between her eyebrows. "Just a moment, Mrs. Morrison. Let me check something." She disappeared into the back office. I stood there at the counter, my purse clutched in my hands, feeling the first flutter of unease in my stomach. When she came back, there was a manager with her, Mr. Patterson, tall and balding, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Mrs. Morrison," he said gently, "could we speak in my office for a moment?" My heart was pounding as I followed him into a small glass-walled office. He closed the door and gestured for me to sit. "Mrs. Morrison, I need to inform you about your savings account balance. You're currently showing $23,400. A withdrawal of $5,000 would bring you quite close to your minimum balance threshold." The room tilted. I gripped the edge of his desk to steady myself. "That's impossible," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I had over $40,000 in that account. At my last statement, he turned his computer screen toward me, and there they were. Withdrawals I never made. $3,000 in January, in-person withdrawal. $5,000 in February, in-person withdrawal. $8,700 just 2 weeks ago, in-person withdrawal. All listed as authorized by Ava Morrison. I never made those withdrawals. I said, my hands shaking so badly I had to clasp them together to keep them still. I never authorized them. Someone was stealing from me. Mr. Patterson's face grew grave. "Can you tell me who made these transactions?" "The system shows they were authorized by you, Mrs. Morrison. You'd need to speak with our fraud department about specific transaction details, but I can tell you that someone presented identification and signed withdrawal slips in your name." I left the bank without the cash, my mind racing. $16,700. Gone. Just gone. And someone had walked into that bank, pretended to be me, and walked out with my money. Not someone. I knew who it was. Deep down I knew. But I couldn't accept it yet. I couldn't accept that my own son, my baby, the child I'd carried for 9 months, the boy I'd raised, loved, sacrificed everything for, could steal from me. When I got home from the bank, I went straight to Richard's old filing cabinet, the one Vanessa had been organizing at Christmas. My hands were still shaking as I pulled open the drawer where I kept all my bank documents organized by year in manila folders the way Richard had taught me. One folder for checking, one for savings, one for investments. Everything in its place. The savings folder was nearly empty. Years of statements gone. Only the most recent 3 months remained the ones that wouldn't show the pattern of theft yet. I sank into Richard's desk chair. My desk chair now, I suppose, though I still thought of it as his, and stared at the empty folder. The leather chair still smelled faintly of his cologne. Old Spice. I'd bought him the same bottle every Christmas for 30 years. Someone had gone through my files. Someone had stolen my bank records. And I knew exactly when it had happened. That day. That day, Vanessa had been helping me organize when I'd left her alone for 20 minutes to make tea. That's when I stopped lying to myself. That's when I stopped making excuses. My son and his wife were robbing me. They were stealing from me, and they thought I was too old, too grief-stricken, too trusting to notice. I sat in that study for 3 hours thinking about every strange moment over the past 8 months. The invasive questions, the pressure to add Daniel to my accounts, the missing jewelry, the opened mail, the constant suggestions that I was getting confused, that my memory was failing. It was all deliberate. It was all part of a plan. They were gaslighting me, making me doubt my own mind so that when I did notice things were wrong, I'd blame myself instead of them. Have you ever had that moment where everything suddenly makes horrible sense? Where all the little pieces you'd been ignoring click into place and form a picture you don't want to see? That's what happened to me that night, and once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront them yet. If I did, they'd just deny everything, make me seem crazy, maybe even accelerate whatever they were planning. No, I needed to be smart about this. I needed evidence. I needed to know exactly what they were doing and how deep this went. So I did something I never thought I'd do. The next morning, I drove to Best Buy and bought a small security camera, the kind that looks like a phone charger. The young man helping me couldn't have been more than 25 with kind eyes and a patient smile showed me how it worked, how it connected to an app on my phone, how it recorded everything. My grandson told me about these. I lied smoothly. For security, you know. At my age, you can't be too careful. He smiled and helped me set it up right there in the store, his fingers flying over my phone screen. By the time I left, I had a functioning camera that would record everything that happened in Richard's study, where I kept all my important documents. I installed it that afternoon, positioning it carefully on the bookshelf so it had a clear view of the filing cabinet, the desk, and anyone entering the room. Then I did something calculated. I called Vanessa. "Ava," she answered on the second ring, her voice bright as always. "How are you feeling? Daniel and I were just talking about your birthday party." I made my voice weak, confused. "I'm feeling a bit tired, actually, sweetheart. A bit overwhelmed. Would you mind coming by tomorrow to help me with some paperwork? I'm having trouble organizing some things, and I thought you could help me sort through it all." There was a pause, then too eagerly, "Of course I'd love to help. What time?" "Around noon, I'll make us lunch." "Perfect," she said. "Don't worry about a thing, Ava. I'll take care of everything." I bet you will, I thought. I bet you will. She arrived the next day wearing head-to-toe designer clothes. I recognized the outfit from the Chanel boutique window downtown. The complete ensemble probably cost $3,000 at least. Where was that money coming from? Daniel's struggling law practice? Or my missing $16,700? I made tea Earl Grey her favorite and deliberately left her alone in the study with files I'd carefully arranged. Decoy documents mixed with real ones, all positioned to tempt someone looking for financial information. "I'll be in the kitchen," I told her, playing the confused old lady. "Just organizing some bills and things. Take your time, sweetheart." I didn't go to the kitchen. I stood in the hallway just out of sight, and I listened. My heart was pounding so hard I thought she might hear it. For a few minutes there was just the sound of papers rustling. Then I heard her voice, low and quick. She was on the phone. "Yeah, it's me," she said quietly. "No, she doesn't suspect anything. She's getting more confused lately, just like we thought. I'm telling you, we can probably take another 10 grand next month. She'll never notice." My breath caught in my throat. "The power of attorney she signed, it looks perfect. Daniel's good at that stuff, babe. His dad taught him well." Babe. She called him babe. That was Daniel on the phone. My son. My son was helping his wife plan how much more money to steal from me. "Yeah, I'm looking at her investment accounts now. Jesus, she's sitting on over $800,000 in mutual funds. Just sitting there, while we're about to lose the house." Lose the house? What was she talking about? "No, I know. I know we can't touch those yet. Not until we get full power of attorney or she's declared incompetent. That's why the doctor's appointment next month is so important. If we can get that diagnosis..." I must have made a sound. A gasp, a sob, something. Because Vanessa went silent suddenly. "I have to go," she whispered and hung up. I composed myself quickly, wiped my eyes, and walked into the study with a smile plastered on my face, carrying a tray with tea and cookies. My hands were shaking so badly the cups rattled in their saucers. Vanessa was sitting at the desk, looking perfectly innocent. A spreadsheet in front of her, one of my decoy documents. "Ava, I'm looking at your expenses here, and I really think you're overspending on utilities. Have you considered creating a budget? I could help you with that." "That's so sweet of you, dear," I said, my voice steady, even though I wanted to scream. "What would I do without you?" She smiled, that bright, fake smile. "That's what family is for." As soon as she left with another piece of my jewelry in her purse, I was sure I pulled up the camera footage on my phone. What I saw made me want to vomit. She'd photographed at least 20 pages of financial documents with her phone. She'd tried to access Richard's old safe, the one she didn't know I'd changed the combination on after he died. She'd gone through my personal mail, pocketing what looked like a credit card statement. And most damning of all, she'd taken several pieces of jewelry from my mother's jewelry box in the closet. Pieces worth thousands of dollars each. Slipped them into her designer handbag like they were nothing. I had her on camera, committing theft in my own home, while I made her tea and pretended everything was fine. But I still needed more. I needed to know the full scope of what they were planning. So I did something else I never thought I'd do. I called a locksmith and had all my locks changed. But I didn't tell Daniel or Vanessa. Instead, I told them I'd given them a spare set, when actually I'd had new keys made that didn't fit any lock in my house anymore. Then I waited to see what would happen. 2 days later, on a Thursday at 11 in the morning, when I was supposed to be at my water aerobics class at the community center, I came home early, and I found Daniel's car in my driveway. My heart stopped. He shouldn't be able to get in. The locks were changed. Unless I parked down the street and called my neighbor, Dr. Patricia Hayes. Patricia had been our neighbor for 15 years. A retired pediatrician, she'd been wonderful after Richard died. We'd become close friends. She was the one who'd brought me soup when I was too sad to cook, the one who sat with me through those first terrible holidays, the one who understood loss. Her husband had died of cancer 10 years before. "Patricia," I said, my voice shaking, "this is going to sound strange, but could you come to my house with me? I think someone's inside who shouldn't be." "I'll be right there," she said immediately. No questions asked. God bless her. She arrived in 3 minutes, still wearing her gardening gloves. We entered together through the back door, and I felt like a burglar in my own home. My hands were shaking as I turned the key. We found Daniel in Richard's study. His laptop was connected to my computer with a cable, and he was going through my digital files, downloading everything. Bank records, insurance policies, investment accounts, property deeds. I could see it all on the screen, files transferring one after another. "Daniel," I said from the doorway, my voice like ice. He jumped like he'd been electrocuted, slamming the laptop closed so hard I heard something crack. His face went white, then red, then white again. "Mom, Jesus, you scared me. I thought you were at the pool." "Clearly," I said. Patricia stepped up beside me, her presence solid and reassuring. "What are you doing in your mother's house, Daniel? How did you get in?" He recovered quickly. Too quickly. That told me he'd rehearsed this, prepared for the possibility of getting caught. "Mom, you gave me a key. Remember I came by to check on the furnace. You said it was making weird noises last week." I never said that. There was nothing wrong with my furnace. "I changed the locks 3 days ago," I said quietly, watching his face. "So how did you get in, Daniel?" His expression flickered. Confusion, anger, fear. Then that smooth lawyer smile slid into place. The smile I'd seen him use in court, the one that had won him cases early in his career. "Mom, you didn't change the locks. You're confused again. You're remembering things that didn't happen. Look, I'm getting really worried about you. Maybe we should talk about getting you some help. Memory issues at your age." "I'm standing right here," Patricia interrupted, stepping forward. "And Ava seems perfectly lucid to me. She told me yesterday that she'd changed her locks. She told me her son shouldn't be able to get in. So I'll ask again, Daniel, how did you get into this house?" The mask slipped. The charming son, the concerned lawyer, it all fell away, and what was underneath was cold and ugly. "This is my mother's house," he said, his voice hard. "I have every right to be here. I'm protecting her assets from her own poor decisions. Someone has to, since she clearly can't manage her own affairs anymore." "Get out," I said. "Mom, you don't understand. Get out of my house." My voice was shaking, but it was from rage now, not fear. Now! He grabbed his laptop and disconnected it roughly from my computer. As he stormed past us, his shoulder bumped mine, hard, deliberately. I stumbled. Patricia caught me. "You're going to regret this." Daniel hissed, his face inches from mine. "You're going to regret choosing her over your own son." "I already regret it," I said, looking him in the eye. "I regret raising a son who became a thief and a liar." His face twisted with rage. For a second, just a second, I thought he might hit me. But Patricia stepped between us, all 5 feet 4 inches of her, and said firmly, "Leave, now." Then he was gone. The back door slammed behind him so hard that a picture frame fell off the wall. One of those family photos from when Daniel was 12, gap-toothed and grinning at the beach. The glass cracked when it hit the floor. I collapsed into Richard's chair. Patricia knelt beside me, holding my hands. "Margaret," she said, she was the only one who still called me by my full name. "What the hell is going on?" So I told her. Everything. The missing money. The forged power of attorney, because I'd finally figured out that must be what happened. Vanessa's theft. The camera footage. All of it. When I finished, Patricia's face was white with fury. "Ava, you need to call the police right now. This is elder abuse. This is fraud. I need more evidence first," I said. "I need to know everything they've done." I took a deep breath. "And then I'm calling Richard's law partner, Thomas Brennan. He'll know what to do." That night I finally made the call. I sat in Richard's chair. My chair now, I kept reminding myself, with the desk lamp casting a small circle of light in the dark house. My hands were steadier than I expected as I scrolled through my contacts to find Thomas Brennan's number. It was 8 o'clock on a Tuesday evening. I knew Thomas would be home, probably having dinner with his wife, Carol. They always ate late. Richard used to tease him about it. The phone rang 3 times before he answered. "Ava, is everything all right?" Just hearing his voice, that familiar rumble, the same tone Richard had used when he was concerned, made something crack inside me. The tears I'd been holding back all day started to fall. "Thomas," I said, and my voice broke. "I need help. It's Daniel. He and Vanessa, they've been stealing from me. And I think it's worse than just the money." "I'm listening," Thomas said, and I could hear him moving a door closing, taking himself somewhere private. "Tell me everything, Ava. Every detail. Start from the beginning." So I did. I told him about the Christmas incident with Vanessa in the study, the invasive questions about my finances, the pressure to add Daniel to my accounts, the missing jewelry, the opened mail, the discovery at the bank, $16,700 gone, the camera footage of Vanessa stealing, finding Daniel in my house today downloading my files. I told him everything. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear Thomas breathing, could almost hear him thinking, processing, shifting into lawyer mode. "Ava," he said finally, his voice tight with controlled anger. "I'm so sorry. Richard would be devastated. But we need to act fast. If they forged a power of attorney, if they've been stealing from your accounts, they might be planning something bigger." He paused. "Have you checked your will lately? Your property deeds?" I hadn't. The thought hadn't even occurred to me. "Let me walk you through it," Thomas said. "Right now. Get on your computer. I'll stay on the phone with you." It took us 30 minutes to access the county records website. Thomas guided me through every step, patient and methodical. And that's when we found it. Someone had attempted to file a deed transfer. Someone had tried to sign my house over to Daniel Morrison using what appeared to be my signature and a notary stamp. The transfer had been rejected, thank God, because the notary's credentials didn't match county records. The attempt had been flagged as suspicious, but the attempt had been made. 3 weeks ago, my son had tried to steal my house, the house Richard and I had bought together 40 years ago, the house where I'd brought Daniel home from the hospital as a baby, the house where I'd celebrated Christmases and birthdays and anniversaries, where I'd kissed Richard goodbye on our last morning together, not knowing it would be the last time. Daniel had tried to take it from me. "Thomas," I whispered into the phone, tears streaming down my face. "What do I do first?" He said, his voice firm and steady, that courtroom voice that had won hundreds of cases. "Tomorrow morning, we're going to my office. 7 a.m. We're locking down every asset you have. New accounts, new passwords, everything in a bank they can't access. Then we're filing a police report for identity theft, forgery, and elder abuse." He paused again. "And Ava, you need to understand something. This isn't just financial crime anymore. This is dangerous. If they've gone this far, they might go further when they realize you're on to them." "He's my son," I said, though the words felt hollow, empty. "I know," Thomas said gently, "but right now he's also a criminal. And criminals don't stop unless someone stops them." He was right. I knew he was right. But I didn't know just how right he was until 5 days later, when everything exploded into violence that left me locked in my basement with broken ribs calling for help while my son and his wife celebrated upstairs. I met Thomas at his law office at 7 a.m. the next morning. I'd barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel's face. That cold, calculating look when Patricia had confronted him. That wasn't my son. That was a stranger wearing my son's face. Thomas had coffee waiting, and a box of tissues, which I appreciated because I'd been crying on and off since midnight. "Ava," he said, settling across from me at the conference table, "I did some preliminary research last night. I need to ask you some hard questions, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Can you do that?" I nodded, wrapping my hands around the coffee cup. The office was cold. Or maybe I was just cold inside. "Has Daniel ever mentioned financial trouble, debts, gambling, anything unusual?" I thought about it carefully. He mentioned his practice was slow about a year ago, said clients were harder to find, that the market was competitive. And about 6 months ago, Vanessa complained about their mortgage payment going up. But Daniel said it was just refinancing. Nothing to worry about. Thomas made a note, his pen scratching across the legal pad. "Do you know who they bank with?" I told him. He made another note, then looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Ava, I'm going to make some calls today, quietly. Richard and I had contacts at most major banks in the city. Favors owed professional relationships." He leaned forward. "If Daniel's in financial trouble, I'll find out. In the meantime, we're going to secure your assets. Everything. Today." We spent the next 3 hours at a different bank across town. Thomas had chosen this bank, specifically Cornerstone Federal, because Daniel had no connections there. No way to charm or manipulate the staff. Everything got transferred. Savings, checking, investment accounts. New account numbers, new passwords, new security questions. "Make the password something Daniel would never guess," Thomas instructed. "Not birthdays, not anniversaries. Something only you would know." I used the name of Richard's childhood dog, Rusty, a golden retriever who died when Richard was 16, and the street where I grew up in Ohio. Maple Lane. Information Daniel had never known or cared about. Thomas also had me set up 2-factor authentication biometric login and alert systems for any transaction over $500. "Your son is a lawyer," he reminded me, his voice grim. "He knows how to manipulate systems. We need to be smarter than him." By noon, every penny I owned was secure in accounts Daniel couldn't access. Thomas also had me draft and notarize a new power of attorney naming him not Daniel, and a new will that explicitly disinherited anyone who contested it or was found to have committed crimes against me. "If they try anything now," Thomas said with satisfaction, "they'll find themselves hitting a brick wall." "Now," he continued, pulling out a folder, "we investigate. I have a private investigator on retainer, Marcus Webb, one of Richard's old contacts. He's discreet, thorough, and he specializes in financial crimes. I'm putting him on this today. We're going to find out exactly what Daniel and Vanessa have been doing." I went home that afternoon feeling both relieved and terrified. Relieved that my money was safe. Terrified about what we might find. Patricia came over that evening with takeout Chinese food. We ate in silence for a while, and then she said, "You know this is going to get worse before it gets better, right?" "I know," I said. "When they realize you've moved your money, when they realize you're on to them." She shook her head. "Desperate people do desperate things, Ava." "I know," I said again, but I didn't really know. Not yet. It took Thomas only 3 days to uncover the truth. When he called me on Thursday afternoon, I was in the garden trying to deadhead roses, trying to pretend life was normal. My phone rang and I saw Thomas's name on the screen. I sat down on the garden bench before I answered. Somehow I knew I'd need to be sitting for this. "Ava," he said without preamble, "your son is in serious debt. I'm talking over $300,000. The garden spun around me. I gripped the edge of the bench. "How is that even possible?" I managed to whisper. "Gambling," Thomas said flatly. "Online poker primarily, but also sports betting and casino trips to Atlantic City. He's been hiding it for years, apparently. Started small after law school got worse after he married Vanessa. The investigator found accounts at multiple online gambling sites, credit cards maxed out. Loans from, he paused. Ava, some of these people he owes money to, they're not the kind who take no for an answer. These are dangerous people. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. His law practice is barely breaking even, Thomas continued. He's lost most of his clients due to negligence and missed deadlines. He's been sanctioned twice by the Bar Association for failing to appear in court. He's one more complaint away from disbarment. My baby, my son. How had I not known? The house I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. In foreclosure, Thomas said. They're 4 months behind on mortgage payments. The bank initiated foreclosure proceedings last month. They have maybe 60 days before they're evicted. My hand went to my mouth. Ava, they're desperate. And desperate people do desperate things, I finished. Patricia said the same thing. She's right, Thomas's voice softened. And there's more, about Vanessa. I waited. Credit card debt of another $150,000. Designer clothing jewelry, luxury vacations, spa treatments, cosmetic procedures. She's been maintaining a lifestyle they absolutely cannot afford. The investigator found receipts. She spent $40,000 in the last 6 months alone on clothing and accessories. That explained the Chanel, the constant new outfits. She was spending money like water while they stole from me to keep their heads above water. Thomas, I said, my voice shaking, if they're that desperate, why not just ask me for help? Would you have given them $450,000? Thomas asked gently. No, I wouldn't have. That was financial suicide. That was enabling. Richard would have said the same thing. There's more, Thomas said, and his voice told me I wasn't going to like it. Ava, 3 months ago, Daniel filed a petition with the court to have you declared mentally incompetent. The world stopped. Just stopped. He claimed you had advanced dementia that you couldn't manage your own affairs. He wanted himself appointed as your legal guardian with full control of your estate. That would have given him access to everything. Your accounts, your property, your investments, all of it. I couldn't speak. My own son had tried to have me declared incompetent. He tried to take away my autonomy, my freedom, my right to control my own life. What happened to the petition? I finally managed to ask. It was dismissed, Thomas said. The judge required a medical evaluation from your primary care physician. Dr. Hayes submitted a report stating you were fully competent with no signs of cognitive decline or dementia. Daniel withdrew the petition after that. Dr. Hayes, Patricia. She'd saved me and didn't even know it. But Ava, Thomas continued, he was going to do it. If Dr. Hayes hadn't been honest, if she'd been someone Daniel could manipulate or bribe, you could have lost everything. You could have ended up in a nursing home while he liquidated your assets to pay his debts. I ran to the bathroom and was sick. Actually, physically sick. When I came back to the phone, Thomas was still there, waiting patiently. There's one more thing, he said gently. The investigator obtained phone records through legal channels. They're part of the fraud investigation now. Ava, there are text messages between Daniel and Vanessa going back over a year. You need to hear some of them. I don't think I can. You need to hear them, Thomas said firmly, because we're taking this to the police today, and you need to know what we're dealing with. He read them to me. Each one was a knife in my heart. The first one was from 13 months ago. Daniel, Mom's got at least 2M liquid. If we're patient and strategic, we can get most of it before anyone notices. Vanessa, what if she figures it out? Daniel, she won't. She's old and lonely and she trusts me completely. And if she does start asking questions, we tell everyone she's losing her mind. Who are they going to believe, a confused widow or her concerned son? 6 months ago, Vanessa, I'm tired of being patient. Can't we just get her declared incompetent and take control? Daniel, working on it. Hayes won't play ball, though actually examined Mom properly. Need to find another doctor willing to sign off. 4 months ago, Vanessa, what about the house? Can't we just sell it out from under her? Daniel tried. Deed transfer got flagged because the notary credentials were fake. We need her to actually sign it herself, or we need full guardianship. And then 3 months ago, the one that made my blood run cold, Vanessa. So we push harder. Make her think she can't handle things anymore. Stress her out. Old people have strokes. Daniel, let's not put that in writing. Vanessa, fine, but I'm just saying waiting for her to die naturally could take years. We don't have years. "Stop," I said. "Thomas, please stop." But he read one more. "The most recent one from 2 weeks ago, Vanessa, the birthday party is perfect. We can get her to sign papers while she's emotional and distracted. Have everything notarized before she realizes what she's signing. Daniel, and if she won't sign, Vanessa, then we move to Plan B. Daniel, we agreed not to discuss Plan B in writing. Vanessa, then let's just hope she signs." I was shaking so hard I dropped the phone. Patricia, who'd come over when she saw me run inside from the garden, picked it up. "Thomas, it's Patricia Hayes. Yes, she heard. We're taking this to the police right now. Today. I'll drive her." Detective Sarah Morrison took my statement in a small interview room at the police station that smelled like coffee and industrial cleaner. She was younger than I expected, maybe 45, with sharp eyes and graying hair pulled back in a tight bun. She'd been working elder abuse cases for 15 years, she told me. She'd seen it all. But even she looked shocked as we laid out the evidence. The bank records showing the theft, the forged power of attorney documents, the attempted deed transfer, the text messages, the camera footage of Vanessa stealing jewelry from my home. When we finished, she sat back and looked at me with something like respect in her eyes. "Mrs. Morrison, you did everything right. You gathered evidence. You documented everything. You protected your assets. A lot of victims in your situation don't even realize what's happening until it's too late. So you'll arrest them?" I asked. She hesitated. "We have enough for fraud, identity theft, forgery, and elder abuse charges. Strong enough for arrest warrants and prosecution. But I need to be honest with you." She leaned forward. "When we move on this, they're going to know it was you who reported them. They're going to be angry, desperate, potentially dangerous. Do you have somewhere safe you can stay?" I thought about it. Most of my friends were elderly like me, or they knew Daniel and might not believe me. I didn't want to put anyone at risk. "I'll stay in my house," I said firmly. "I'm not running from my own son. I'm not letting him chase me out of the home Richard and I built together." Thomas looked like he wanted to argue, but he knew me well enough to know when I'd made up my mind. "Then we're installing a security system," he said. "Today, top of the line, cameras, alarms, motion sensors, panic buttons, and I'm filing for an emergency restraining order right now." Detective Morrison nodded. "That's smart. And Mrs. Morrison, I want you to program 911 into your speed dial. If they show up, if they contact you, if you feel threatened in any way, you call immediately. Don't hesitate. Don't try to handle it yourself." "I understand," I said, but I didn't really understand. Not yet. I still didn't believe my son, my baby, would actually hurt me. Not physically. God, I was naive. By 6 p.m. that evening, my house was equipped with security I'd only seen in movies. The technicians from Secure Home Systems worked for 3 hours installing cameras at every entrance, front door, back door, garage door, basement door, motion sensors on every window, glass break detectors, a central alarm system with a code only I knew, and panic buttons, 3 of them, 1 in the kitchen, 1 in my bedroom, 1 in the study. "Press any of these," the lead technician explained, "and it sends an immediate alert to the police, to the monitoring center, and to the 3 emergency contacts you listed. Thomas, Patricia, and 911. Patricia came over as they were finishing carrying an overnight bag. "I'm staying tonight," she announced. "No arguments. I'll sleep in the guest room." I was too tired to argue, too emotionally exhausted. I was grateful for her presence, for the sound of someone else in the house. We made dinner together, just soup and sandwiches, nothing fancy, and ate in the living room with all the lights on. Neither of us said it, but we were both waiting. Waiting for a phone call. A knock on the door. Something, but the night passed quietly. The next morning, Friday, Thomas filed the emergency restraining order with the court. By noon, Daniel and Vanessa had been served with papers prohibiting them from contacting me or coming within 500 feet of my property. At 2 p.m., my phone rang. Daniel's number. I knew I shouldn't answer. Thomas had told me not to engage, but some part of me, the mother part, the part that still remembered holding him as a baby, teaching him to ride a bike, crying at his law school graduation, couldn't resist. "Mom," he said, and his voice was shaking with barely controlled fury. "What the hell did you do?" "David, on a restraining order. The police called me about fraud charges. Are you out of your goddamn mind?" I'd never heard him swear at me before. Never. "You stole from me," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. You forged documents. You tried to steal my house. You tried to have me declared incompetent. Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" There was silence, long and heavy. Then he laughed, actually laughed, and it was the ugliest sound I'd ever heard. "Mom, you're confused. We were trying to help you. You clearly need professional help if you're making these kinds of wild accusations against your own family." "I have evidence," I interrupted. "Bank records showing the theft. Camera footage of Vanessa stealing jewelry from my home. Text messages between you and Vanessa discussing how to steal from me, how to make me—" My voice broke. "How to make me die faster. I know everything, Daniel. Everything." The laughter stopped. When he spoke again, his voice was ice cold. "You're going to regret this, Mother. You're going to regret choosing strangers over your own family, over your own blood. You chose money over me," I said, tears streaming down my face. "You stopped being my family the day you decided to steal from me. You stopped being the son I raised." "No," he said viciously. "I'm exactly the son you and Dad created. The one who learned that winning is everything, that money is power, that only results matter. Dad taught me that. Every day of my childhood. And now you're going to pay for turning on me. Your father's dead, Daniel." "I know," he said. "And soon you'll wish you were too." He hung up. I sat there staring at the phone, his words echoing in my head. "Soon you'll wish you were too." Was that a threat? Should I call Detective Morrison Thomas? But I was frozen, paralyzed by grief and fear and the horrible realization that my son wasn't just a thief. He was dangerous. I should have called someone right then. I should have reported the threat. I should have left the house. But I didn't, because I was still in shock, still processing that the baby I'd loved and raised had just threatened my life. And that's why when my birthday came 3 days later on Monday, I made the fatal mistake that would end with me locked in my basement with broken ribs. April 15th, my 68th birthday. I woke up that morning wishing Richard was still alive. He'd always made birthdays special. Breakfast in bed, French toast with strawberries just the way I liked it. Fresh flowers from the garden, usually roses. Silly cards that made me laugh until I cried. Little gifts wrapped in newspaper comics because he said wrapping paper was a waste of money. This year I woke up alone in a house that felt more like a fortress than a home. Cameras watching every door. Panic buttons installed in every room. An alarm system that beeped every time I opened a window. Thomas had called the night before. "Ava, please don't engage with Daniel or Vanessa. The DA is finalizing the charges. We're close to making arrests. Just hold on a few more days. Stay away from them." But then Vanessa's text came at 9 a.m. I was in the kitchen making coffee when my phone buzzed. Vanessa's number. I almost deleted it without reading. But I didn't. "Vanessa, Ava, please. We made terrible mistakes, but we're family. Can we please just talk? We have a birthday gift for you. Just 30 minutes, please. We love you." I stared at that text for 20 minutes. I knew it was a bad idea. Every rational part of my brain was screaming at me to delete it. Block the number, call Thomas. But it was my birthday. I was alone. And some pathetic, desperate part of me wanted to believe they'd show up with genuine remorse. That maybe my son was still in there somewhere buried under the gambling debts and desperation. So I texted back, 2 p.m., 30 minutes only. Then you leave. I called Thomas immediately after. He answered on the first ring, and I could tell from his voice that he was about to yell at me. "Ava, no. It's from Vanessa's phone, not Daniel's," I said. "Technically, it's not a violation of the restraining order. That's not the point. Thomas, I need closure. I need to look my son in the eye one last time and give him a chance to do the right thing." Thomas was silent for a long moment. I could hear him breathing, thinking probably counting to 10 to keep from yelling. "Fine," he said finally. "But I'm coming over. I'll wait in my car outside and you're wearing a wire. I'm going to record everything. And I'm calling Patricia to be there inside with you. You don't meet with them alone. That's non-negotiable." "Deal," I said, relief flooding through me. Patricia arrived at 1:30 bringing a lemon cake she'd baked. My favorite. "Happy birthday," she said, hugging me tight. Though I wish we were celebrating under better circumstances. "Ava, are you absolutely sure you want to do this?" "No," I admitted. "But I have to know if there's any part of my son left worth saving. I have to try one more time." She squeezed my hand. Then I'll be right there with you. Thomas arrived at 1:45 and handed me a small device that clipped to my bra strap hidden under my cardigan. It's recording now, he said, and I'm listening from the car. If anything, and I mean anything, feels wrong, I'm coming in. Understand? I understand. At 2 p.m. sharp, I watched them on the new security camera feed walking up my front path. Daniel was wearing a suit like he'd come from the office, but his office had been closed for 3 months, I'd learned from Thomas's investigator. He had nowhere to go, nothing to do. He was just keeping up appearances. Vanessa was in a designer dress I'd never seen before, probably bought with my stolen money. They were carrying a wrapped box and a bouquet of roses. They looked normal, respectable, like loving family members coming to celebrate a birthday. My hand hovered over the door handle. This was my last chance to change my mind, to send them away, to protect myself. But I opened the door. "Mom," Daniel said, and his smile looked almost genuine. Almost. "Happy birthday." Vanessa held out the roses. "We really are so sorry, Ava. We want to make things right. Can we please come in and talk?" I stepped aside and let them in. Patricia was standing right behind me, solid and protective. We sat in the living room, me in Richard's old chair, Patricia on the sofa beside me, Daniel and Vanessa across from us. The wrapped box sat on the coffee table between us like a lie wrapped in pretty paper. "So," I said, keeping my voice neutral, "you wanted to talk." Daniel leaned forward, his hands clasped together, his expression earnest. It was his courtroom face, the one he used to convince juries, the one that had won him cases back when he still had cases to win. "Mom, I think there's been a huge misunderstanding, some terrible miscommunication. Vanessa and I were only trying to help you manage your finances. We were worried about you." Vanessa nodded, her voice sweet as honey. "Those transactions you're concerned about, those were payments we made on your behalf. Property taxes, insurance premiums, home maintenance. We were taking care of things so you wouldn't have to worry." "I pay my own bills," I said coldly. "I always have." "But Mom," Daniel said, his voice dripping with false concern, "you've been getting confused. You've forgotten conversations we've had. You've accused us of things that never happened. We're worried about you. We think you might need to see a doctor about your memory." There it was, the gaslighting, the same script they'd been using for months. "I'm not confused," I said, my voice like steel. "I have bank records showing $16,700 stolen from my accounts. I have camera footage of Vanessa stealing jewelry from my home. I have text messages between the two of you planning how much more to steal from me, discussing how to make me die faster so you could inherit sooner." I leaned forward. "I know about the forged power of attorney. I know about the attempted deed transfer. I know about the guardianship petition. I know everything." The mask slipped, just for a second, but Patricia and I both saw it. The flash of rage in Daniel's eyes, the cold calculation in Vanessa's. Then Daniel's face crumpled and tears actually welled up in his eyes. Fake tears. I knew they were fake. "Mom, who's been telling you these lies, Thomas Brennan. He's trying to control you now that Dad's gone. He wants your money for himself. Can't you see that? Thomas is protecting me from you," I said. "And as of last week, you have no access to any of my accounts, any of my property, or any of my assets. Everything is secured. Everything is documented. And the police are preparing to press charges." Vanessa stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "This is ridiculous. We came here in good faith to apologize, and you're attacking us." "Sit down," Patricia said firmly. "You asked for this meeting. Let Ava finish." Vanessa sat, but her hands were clenched into fists, her face flushed with anger. I took a breath. This was the moment, the last chance. "Daniel, I'm your mother. I love you. I raised you to be honest and ethical and strong. What happened to you? When did money become more important than family?" For just a moment, one fleeting second, I saw something in my son's face. Pain, maybe, or shame. The little boy who'd cried when his goldfish died. The teenager who'd hugged me after his first heartbreak. The young man who'd called me from law school so proud and excited about his future. Then it was gone, replaced by cold fury. "You want to know when," he said, his voice bitter and sharp, "when Dad spent more time at the office than with us. When you told me I had to be successful, had to be better, had to be like him. When I grew up watching you both sit on millions while I struggled. He stood up, towering over me. You have all this money, Mom. Millions. And you won't even help your own son avoid foreclosure. What kind of mother does that? The kind who didn't know her son was gambling it all away, I said quietly. The kind who would have helped if you'd asked honestly instead of stealing. Daniel, you could have come to me. And what? He shouted, his face red. Admit I was a failure. Admit I couldn't be like Dad. Admit that my practice is falling apart and my wife is drowning us in debt. You would have judged me, just like you're judging me now. I'm judging you for betraying me, I said, standing to face him. For forging my signature. For trying to steal my home. For trying to have me declared incompetent. For stealing from me and lying to me for over a year. We needed that money, Vanessa screamed, jumping up. You don't need it. You're old. You're going to die soon anyway. Why should you sit on millions while we lose everything? The room went silent. Patricia gasped. I felt like I'd been slapped. And Daniel looked at his wife with something like horror, as if he'd just realized how far they'd actually fallen. Vanessa, he started. No, she snapped, her face twisted with rage. I'm done pretending. She's a selfish old woman who cares more about control than helping her own family. Well, you know what, Ava? You're going to die alone in this house. And when you do, we'll contest that new will and take everything anyway. You can't stop us. Get out, I said, my voice shaking. Both of you, get out of my house right now. We're not finished, Vanessa started. Get out or I'm calling the police right now, Patricia said, already pulling out her phone. You're violating a restraining order and making threats. I'm a witness to all of it. Daniel grabbed Vanessa's arm. We're leaving, he said quietly. But as he passed me, he stopped, looked me in the eye, and then his hand shot out and shoved my shoulder. Hard. I stumbled backward, caught myself on the chair. It wasn't violent enough to knock me down, but it was deliberate, aggressive, a warning. You're choosing strangers over family, Mom, he said, his voice cold, his face inches from mine. You're going to regret this. I promise you that. I already regret it, I said, looking him in the eye. I regret raising a son who became a thief and a liar. His face twisted with rage. For a second, just a second, I thought he might actually hit me, but Patricia stepped between us. Leave, now. They left. Without the gift. Without the flowers. Just stormed out and slammed the door so hard that the same picture frame from before fell off the wall again. The one of 12-year-old Daniel at the beach. The cracked glass shattered completely this time. Patricia held me while I cried. Thomas came in from his car where he'd been listening through the recording device. That was assault, he said grimly, his face dark with anger. That shove. Those threats from Vanessa. Ava, we're calling Detective Morrison right now. This is evidence. They're done. We spent the next hour on the phone with the police reporting the restraining order violation, the threats, the physical aggression. Detective Morrison assured us arrests would happen within 24 hours. Just stay safe tonight, she said. Lock your doors, set your alarm, and call 911 immediately if they come back. They're desperate now, Mrs. Morrison. Desperate and cornered. That's when people are most dangerous. Thomas wanted to stay. Patricia wanted to stay. But I sent them both home. I'm exhausted, I told them. I just want to be alone. Please. They left reluctantly, making me promise 3 times to call if anything felt wrong. And I was alone in my fortress on my 68th birthday, with a lemon cake I couldn't eat and a future that felt impossibly dark. I should have known they'd come back. I should have known that look in Daniel's eyes, that cold, calculated rage meant something worse was coming. But I was so tired, so heartbroken, and I let my guard down. At 7:45 p.m., my doorbell rang. I checked the security camera. Vanessa, alone, holding a bottle of wine. She looked calm, almost apologetic. I almost didn't answer, but she looked harmless standing there by herself, and I thought maybe without Daniel there to egg her on, she might actually want to apologize. So I opened the door, and Daniel stepped out from the side of the house where the camera couldn't see him. That's when everything went wrong. Daniel shoved past me the second I opened the door, his hand hitting my shoulder so hard I stumbled backward into the foyer. Vanessa followed, slamming the door behind them and turning the deadbolt. The sound of that lock clicking into place made my blood run cold. You really thought we'd just let you destroy us? Daniel said, his voice shaking with rage. You really thought you could turn us into the police and we'd just accept it? Daniel, please. I started backing away toward the living room, toward the panic button hidden under the end table, but he was faster. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in so hard I knew there'd be bruises, dark purple ones that would last for weeks. No, you're going to listen to me now, Mother. You're going to fix this. Let go of me, I said, trying to pull away. You're violating the restraining order. I'm calling the police. With what phone? Vanessa asked, holding up my cell phone. She must have grabbed it from the hall table when they came in. Looking for this. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. They'd planned this. They'd come here to do something. Something bad. What do you want? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, even though I was terrified. We want you to call your lawyer, Daniel said, dragging me toward the living room. We want you to drop the charges, withdraw the restraining order, and transfer $500,000 into our account. Tonight. Right now. I can't do that, I said. Daniel, you need help. You have a gambling problem. Let me help you get treatment. Real treatment. We can, he laughed. That ugly, bitter laugh that didn't sound like my son at all. Treatment, Mom. We're about to lose everything. Our house, our cars, our lives. Do you know what happens to people who owe money to the kind of people I owe money to? They don't send polite reminder letters. They break your kneecaps. They burn down your house with you inside it. They then file for bankruptcy, I said desperately. Start over, but I can't give you money to feed your addiction. That won't help you. That will only, you can and you will, Vanessa said, stepping close to me. So close I could smell her perfume. Chanel No. 5, the expensive kind, probably bought with my money. Because if you don't, we're going to make you. We're going to tell everyone you fell down the stairs, that you're old and confused and you hurt yourself, that we found you like that and tried to help. The implication was clear. They were threatening to hurt me and claim it was an accident. Get out of my house, I said, my voice shaking. Get out now or I'm screaming. My neighbor will hear. Dr. Hayes. She left an hour ago, Daniel said with a smirk. I watched her leave. She got in her car and drove away for her book club. Happens every Friday night. She won't be back until 10. There's no one here to help you, Mom. It's just us. He'd been watching my house, watching Patricia's routine, waiting for the right moment. The police know you're here, I lied. Thomas knows. I told them you were coming. No, you didn't, Vanessa interrupted. Because you're stupid and sentimental. You thought we'd actually come here to apologize. You let us in, Mom, just like you always do. You always let us in. She was right, even after everything I'd opened the door. Now, Daniel said, pulling out his own phone. You're going to call Thomas Brennan. You're going to tell him you made a mistake, that you were confused and you want to drop all the charges. Do it now. No, I said. His hand moved so fast I didn't see it coming. He shoved me backward and I hit the kitchen counter hard. Something in my chest cracked, a sharp, blinding pain that made me gasp and nearly black out. I'd broken my ribs. He'd broken my ribs. Daniel, even Vanessa sounded shocked. What are you? Shut up, he snapped at her. Then to me as I collapsed to my hands and knees on the kitchen floor, trying to breathe, trying not to pass out. Get up, Mom. Call Thomas. Do it now. I couldn't get up. The pain was too intense. Every breath felt like knives in my chest. I said get up. Daniel grabbed my arm and hauled me to my feet. The movement sent fresh waves of agony through my chest and I cried out. You're hurting her, Vanessa said, and I heard something in her voice. Fear, maybe, or the first flicker of conscience. She's hurting us, Daniel shouted. She's destroying our lives. After everything we did for her, she turned on us. You stole from me. I gasped, tears streaming down my face. You tried to steal my house. You're thieves. He hit me, not with his fist, but with his open hand across my face. My head snapped to the side. I tasted blood. That's when something inside me broke. Not just physically, something deeper. The mother who'd loved him unconditionally, who'd made excuses for him, who'd hoped he could be saved. She died in that moment. You're not my son anymore, I said quietly, looking him in the eye. My son died. You're just a criminal wearing his face. His face contorted with rage. Learn your place, Mother, he hissed. Then he started dragging me toward the basement door. What are you doing? Vanessa asked, her voice rising with panic. Daniel, this is too far. She's going in the basement until she agrees to cooperate, he said. We'll leave her down there until she's ready to make that call. A few hours in the dark should change her mind. He opened the basement door and I grabbed the door frame, holding on with everything I had, even though the pain in my ribs was excruciating. Let go, Daniel said. No, I gasped. You'll have to kill me. Is that what you want, to be a murderer? For a second, just 1 second, he hesitated. And in that second I saw my son, the real Daniel, buried under the desperation and the addiction and the choices that had brought him here. He looked horrified, lost. Then Vanessa's voice cut through. Just put her in the basement, Daniel. We don't have time for this. And he was gone again. He pried my fingers off the door frame one by one, and then he pushed me. I fell down 3 stairs before I could catch myself. The pain when I landed made me scream. Daniel, please, I begged, looking up at him from the basement stairs. Please don't do this. He slammed the door. I heard the deadbolt slide into place. Complete darkness swallowed me. I managed to crawl down the rest of the stairs, every movement agony. But I had to get to Richard's workshop. To the phone he'd left there. The phone they didn't know about. Above me I could hear them talking, arguing. We need to leave, Vanessa was saying. This is assault. If she calls the police. She can't call anyone, Daniel said. She doesn't have her phone. But when we let her out, we're not letting her out until she agrees. And if she doesn't agree, Vanessa's voice was shrill now. Daniel, what are you planning? I don't know, he said, and he sounded lost, broken. I just know we can't go to jail. I can't go to jail, Vanessa. The people I owe money to, if I'm in jail, I'm a sitting target. They'll kill me. Then we take the money and run, Vanessa said. We have her house keys. We can come back when she's at the doctor or something. Take whatever jewelry is left. Clean out. There's nothing to take, Daniel interrupted. She moved everything. Every account is empty or closed. Thomas Brennan has it all locked down. She did this, Vanessa. She destroyed us. No, I whispered in the darkness, my hands finally finding the phone behind the paint cans. You destroyed yourselves. My fingers were shaking so badly I could barely dial, but I managed. I called Thomas, and when I heard the sirens 15 minutes later, when I heard the police breaking down my door, when I heard Vanessa screaming and Daniel shouting, I knew it was over. I heard footsteps thundering across my floor. Did you hear that? An officer's voice called out. Someone's in the basement. Mrs. Morrison, another voice. Can you hear me? Here, I managed weakly. I'm here. The basement door splintered as they broke the lock. Light flooded down the stairs, and suddenly there were paramedics rushing toward me, a female officer kneeling beside me, and Thomas's face appearing at the top of the stairs, white with fear and fury. Get her out of there, Thomas said. Carefully, she's injured. They helped me up the stairs slowly, each step agony. But I needed to see. I needed to see Daniel and Vanessa in handcuffs. I needed that closure. We reached the main floor, and there they were. Daniel on my sofa, hands cuffed behind his back. Vanessa against the wall being read her rights by a female officer. Detective Morrison was there too, her face grim. When Daniel saw me bruised, broken, being supported by paramedics, his face crumpled. Mom, I didn't mean it was an accident. You fell. Stop talking, the officer with him said sharply, but he couldn't stop. She attacked me first. I was defending myself. She went crazy. We have audio, Thomas said coldly, holding up his phone. Ava was wearing a recording device. We have everything. Every word, every threat, every moment of violence. Your own voices convicting you. Daniel's face went white, then gray. He looked at me, and for just a moment I saw the little boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. Mom, he whispered. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't want it to be like this. Officers, Detective Morrison interrupted. Get them out of here. Daniel Morrison, Vanessa Morrison, you're under arrest for assault and battery, elder abuse, unlawful imprisonment, violation of a restraining order, extortion, and attempted robbery. You'll be formally charged at the station. They took Daniel first. As they walked him past me, he tried to stop. Mom, please. Keep moving, the officer said, not unkindly. Mom, Daniel called back as they led him to the door. I love you, Mom, please. But I didn't answer. I couldn't, because the son I loved was already gone. and this stranger didn't deserve my words. Vanessa went next, still protesting, still claiming innocence. The door closed behind them, and suddenly my house was full of police officers, paramedics, crime scene technicians, and Thomas. "Mrs. Morrison," one of the paramedics said gently, "we need to get you to the hospital. You have at least 2 broken ribs, possibly more. You might have internal bleeding." I nodded, but I looked at Thomas first. "Is it over?" I asked. "Tell me it's over." "It's over," he said, taking my hand. "They're going to jail Ava, both of them, for a long time. You're safe now." "I don't feel safe," I whispered. "I feel destroyed." "I know," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But you survived. You fought back. Richard would be so proud of you." I spent 3 days in the hospital, 2 broken ribs, severe bruising, and what the doctors called acute emotional trauma. They wanted to keep me longer, but I insisted on going home. My home. Not a hospital room that smelled like disinfectant and fear. Thomas picked me up on Thursday morning. Patricia was waiting at my house with fresh flowers in every room, daisies and tulips, bright and cheerful, and all the locks changed again. They'd cleaned up the evidence of what happened. The broken basement door, the scuff marks on the floor where I'd been dragged, but they couldn't erase the memories. "How are you feeling?" Patricia asked, helping me settle into Richard's chair. My chair now. "Like I survived a war," I said honestly. "But I'm not sure what I survived for." The first few weeks were the hardest. Every sound made me jump. Every knock on the door sent my heart racing. I couldn't sleep in my bedroom anymore, it was too far from an exit. So I slept on the sofa in the living room with all the lights on and my phone clutched in my hand. Thomas came by every day. He brought updates about the case, but mostly he just sat with me while I cried or stared at nothing. Daniel and Vanessa were formally charged, he told me 2 weeks after the attack. Assault and battery, elder abuse, unlawful imprisonment, extortion, attempted robbery, and violation of a restraining order. The DA is pushing for maximum sentences given the severity and the family relationship. "What does that mean?" I asked. "Daniel is looking at 15 to 20 years, Vanessa 12 to 15. They tried to make bail, but the judge denied it. They're both in county jail awaiting trial. 20 years. My son would be 62 when he got out. If he got out." "He wants to see you," Thomas said carefully. "He's written you letters, 3 of them so far. His lawyer thinks if you visit him, show support, it might help with sentencing." "No," I said immediately. "Burn the letters. I don't want to see him. I don't want to read his excuses." Thomas nodded. He didn't argue. He understood. Patricia started coming over every evening with dinner. Sometimes we'd eat in silence. Sometimes she'd tell me stories about her grandchildren, her garden, anything to fill the quiet. One night, about a month after the attack, she said, "You know you're allowed to grieve, right? Even though he hurt you. Even though he's a criminal. He was still your son." I looked at her, tears streaming down my face. "I don't know how to grieve someone who's still alive. Someone who chose to become a monster. I don't think anyone knows how to do that," she said gently. "But you don't have to figure it out alone." She gave me the number of a therapist, Dr. Rebecca Harris, specialized in elder abuse and family trauma. I made an appointment the next day. 3 months later, there was a trial. I had to testify. I had to sit in that courtroom and look at Daniel in his orange jumpsuit and tell a room full of strangers how my son had broken my ribs and locked me in a basement, how he'd stolen from me, how he'd planned to let me die or stress me into a stroke so he could inherit my money. Daniel cried the whole time I testified, big dramatic tears that I knew were meant for the jury. But they didn't work. The jury could see through them. Vanessa stared at me with pure hatred. No tears, no remorse, just cold rage. The prosecution played the audio recording, every word, every threat, every moment of violence. "Learn your place, Mother. She's going to die soon anyway. A few hours in this dark should change her mind." The jury looked sick. One woman in the back row was crying. Daniel's lawyer tried to paint me as a confused old woman who'd misunderstood their intentions, who'd turned a family disagreement into a criminal case. But then the prosecution showed the text messages, the bank records, the attempted deed transfer, the forged power of attorney, the camera footage of Vanessa stealing. The evidence was overwhelming, The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. The judge was an older woman with kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a bun. She looked at Daniel when she delivered the sentence. "Mr. Morrison," she said, her voice stern but not unkind, "you betrayed the person who gave you life. You exploited your mother's love and trust for financial gain. You physically assaulted a 68-year-old woman. This court has no sympathy for you." She paused, letting the words sink in. "I sentence you to 18 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for 12 years. Vanessa got 15 years. As they led Daniel out of the courtroom, he looked at me one last time. His mouth formed one word, Mom. Just that. Nothing else. I looked away. 6 months after the trial, I sold the Victorian house. I couldn't live there anymore. Every room held memories of betrayal. The kitchen where Daniel had broken my ribs. The basement where I'd been imprisoned. The living room where we'd had that final, terrible confrontation. So I bought a smaller house across town. A cozy cottage with a garden and good neighbors who didn't know my story. Who just saw me as Ava, the nice widow next door who volunteered at the library. Patricia helped me move. Thomas helped me set up security again, though I needed less now. Cameras at the doors, but no panic buttons. I was learning to feel safe again. Slowly. I started seeing Dr. Harris regularly. Every week at first, then every other week. "You're not broken," she told me during one session when I was crying about how I couldn't trust anyone anymore. "You're healing. There's a difference." She taught me that what happened wasn't my fault. That loving someone doesn't mean you have to let them destroy you. That setting boundaries even with family, especially with family, isn't cruel. It's survival. I joined a support group for elder abuse survivors. 12 people sitting in a church basement every Wednesday evening drinking bad coffee and sharing stories that would break your heart. "My daughter stole my pension for 2 years, one woman said. "My son forged my signature to take out loans in my name," another shared. "My grandson convinced me to sign over my house, then evicted me." A man in his 70s told us, his voice shaking. We weren't alone. That's what I learned. This happens more than people want to admit. Family members who see their aging parents not as people to love and protect, but as resources to exploit. A year after the trial, I was doing better. Not good. I don't think I'll ever be good again. But better. I had a routine. I volunteered at the library twice a week teaching adult literacy classes. I had coffee with Patricia every Sunday. I went to my support group. I saw Dr. Harris once a month now instead of once a week, and I started speaking out. It began with an interview for the local paper. Just a small piece about elder abuse, what to watch for how to protect yourself. But it got picked up by the regional news. Then a TV station asked me to come on their morning show. Thomas set me up with advocacy groups. I started traveling to senior centers, telling my story, teaching other elderly people how to protect themselves from their own families. Watch for the signs. I told a room of 70 people at a community center in March. Sudden interest in your finances. Pressure to add names to accounts or change wills. Missing money or belongings. Isolation from friends. Being told you're confused or forgetful when you know you're not. I paused, making eye contact with people around the room. If your gut tells you something is wrong, it usually is. An elderly man raised his hand. He had kind eyes and trembling hands. What if it's your own child? How do you turn in your own child? I looked at him, and I saw myself 2 years ago. Confused, hurting, wanting to believe the best. You remember, I said gently, that protecting yourself isn't betraying them. They betrayed you first. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let them face consequences for their actions. Because that's the only chance they have to change. Did I believe that I wasn't sure? Daniel hadn't changed. He still wrote me letters through his lawyer. I still didn't read them. Maybe someday I would. Maybe not. Vanessa divorced him 6 months into his sentence. She's in a women's prison 200 miles away. I heard she's working in the prison library. I don't think about her much anymore. Do I forgive them? People ask me that all the time. Strangers mostly, who think forgiveness is the key to healing. Who think I can't move forward unless I forgive. The truth is, I don't know. Some days I think I've forgiven Daniel because I can get through a whole day without crying. Other days I wake up angry, and I know I haven't forgiven anything. But I've learned something more important than forgiveness. I've learned that I can survive, that I'm stronger than I thought, that love isn't the same as allowing someone to destroy you. I'm 70 years old now. 2 years since that terrible birthday. 2 years since my son broke my ribs and locked me in a basement. I live in my cottage with a cat I adopted from the shelter. A cranky orange tabby I named Richard who sleeps on my lap while I read. He's terrible at catching mice, but excellent at demanding treats. I have friends who genuinely care about me, not about my bank account. I have purpose in my advocacy work. I have peace most days. My son is in prison. That's a fact. It's painful, but it's justice. And me, I'm still here, still standing, still fighting to make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to someone else. Last month I received a letter, not from Daniel, from a woman named Margaret Chen. She'd seen me speak at a senior center in Boston. "Dear Mrs. Morrison," she wrote, "I wanted to thank you. After hearing your story, I checked my bank statements and discovered my daughter had been stealing from me for 18 months. Because of you, I gathered evidence, called the police, and protected my assets. Because of you, I survived. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for speaking out." I cried when I read that letter, but they were good tears, healing tears, because that's what matters now. Not revenge, not even justice, really, but making sure other people don't suffer what I suffered. Making sure other elderly people know the signs, know they're not alone, know they don't have to accept abuse from anyone. Not even family. It was a Tuesday afternoon in April, almost exactly 2 years after that terrible birthday, when something unexpected happened. I was in the garden planting tomatoes when a young woman approached my fence. She was maybe 30, with Daniel's eyes and my mother's smile. "Mrs. Morrison," she said hesitantly. "Ava Morrison." I stood up slowly, my knees protesting. "Yes, I'm Sarah Morrison. Your granddaughter." The world tilted. I'd known Daniel had a daughter from his first marriage. But that was before Vanessa, before the gambling. I hadn't seen Sarah since she was maybe 10 years old. Her mother had moved to California after the divorce, and Daniel had stopped paying child support, stopped visiting, stopped being a father. "Sarah," I said, my voice cracking. "My God, look at you. You're all grown up." "I know this is weird," she said quickly, "showing up like this, but I saw you on the news talking about elder abuse, and I realized I never knew. About you, about what my dad did." She stepped closer to the fence. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "Oh, honey," I said, tears already forming. "You don't have anything to apologize for. None of this was your fault." "Can we talk?" she asked. "Please, I've spent the last 2 years wondering if I should reach out. If you'd even want to see me." "Of course," I said immediately. "Come in, please." We sat in my garden drinking iced tea, and she told me her story. Her mother had remarried when Sarah was 12. A good man, a kind man who became the father Daniel had failed to be. She'd gone to college, became a social worker. She worked with at-risk youth now. "I think part of me was always trying to understand my dad," she said. "Why he left. Why he chose gambling and money over his own daughter." "It wasn't about you," I said gently. "It was never about you. He was sick, addicted, and he made terrible choices." "I know," she said, "but it still hurt." She looked at me with those eyes, Daniel's eyes, but kinder somehow. "When I saw you on TV talking about what he did to you, I was so angry and so ashamed. Because he's my father, and I couldn't stop him, couldn't save you." "Stop," I said, reaching for her hand. "You were a child. None of this was your responsibility." We talked for 3 hours. About Daniel, about Richard, about the family she never got to know. About her work, her life, her partner, a woman named Maya who made her laugh. As the sun started to set, she said, "Would it be okay if I visited again? I know I can't replace what you lost, but I'd like to get to know you. If you want that?" "I would love that," I said, and I meant it. After she left, I sat in my garden as the fireflies started to come out, and for the first time in 2 years, I felt something I hadn't expected to feel again. Hope. Not hope that Daniel would change. Not hope that things would go back to how they were. But hope that something good could grow from the ashes. That family didn't have to mean blood. That I could love and be loved without fear. Sarah started visiting every other week. She brought Maya to meet me. They brought me books and flowers and stories about their work, their lives, their dreams. One Sunday, Sarah said, "You know there's going to be a parole hearing for my dad in about 10 years. "I know," I said. "Will you go? Will you speak?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "Ask me in 10 years. She nodded. "Whatever you decide, I'll support you. And I want you to know I'm not asking you to forgive him. I haven't forgiven him. I just wanted you to know that you're not alone. You have family. Me. Maya. We're your family now if you want us." I did want them. So much. On my 70th birthday, Patricia threw me a party. Small, intimate. Just Patricia and her daughter Thomas and Carol Dr. Harris, Sarah and Maya, and a few friends from my support group. We ate cake in my garden lemon cake, Patricia's recipe. We laughed and told stories and celebrated not just my birthday, but survival, resilience, the choice to keep living even when living hurts. Thomas stood up to make a toast. "To Ava," he said, raising his glass, "who taught us all what courage really means. Not the absence of fear, but the choice to fight even when you're terrified. Not the absence of pain, but the choice to heal even when healing seems impossible." He looked at me with tears in his eyes. "Richard would be so proud of you, and so am I." We all drank, and I cried, but they were good tears. Later, when everyone had gone home except Patricia, who was helping me clean up, she said, "You know what amazes me? That you survived something that would have destroyed most people. And instead of becoming bitter or afraid, you became an advocate. You turned your pain into purpose." "I didn't have a choice," I said. "Yes, you did," Patricia said firmly. "You could have stayed silent. You could have hidden what happened, pretended everything was fine. But you didn't. You spoke out. You helped other people. That was a choice, Ava. And it was brave." Maybe she was right. I started writing this story not long after that birthday. Writing it all down, every detail, every emotion, every moment of fear and pain and survival. Because stories matter. Because silence protects abusers. Because somewhere out there, another elderly person is confused about why their money is disappearing, why their family is suddenly so interested in their finances, why they feel manipulated and gaslighted and alone. And I want them to know, you're not crazy. You're not imagining it. And you're not alone. It's been 4 years now since that terrible birthday. Daniel is still in prison. He'll be eligible for parole in 8 more years. I don't know if I'll go to the hearing. I don't know if I'll speak. I don't know if I've forgiven him. But I know this. I survived. And survival, true survival, isn't just about staying alive. It's about choosing to live. Choosing joy. Choosing connection. Choosing to believe that goodness exists even after you've seen the worst of what people can do. I'm 72 now. I still volunteer at the library. I still speak at senior centers. I still go to my support group every Wednesday. Sarah and Maya got married last spring. I walked Sarah down the aisle, the grandmother she'd never had stepping into the role her father abandoned. We both cried through the whole ceremony. Patricia and I take watercolor classes together on Thursday mornings. I'm terrible at it, but it makes me happy. And happiness, I've learned, is something you have to choose every single day. My advocacy work has expanded. I'm working with state legislators now to strengthen elder abuse laws, to require better training for bank employees to spot financial exploitation, to create more resources for victims. Last month, a woman came up to me after I spoke at a senior center in New Hampshire. She was crying. "Thank you," she said. "My son has been pressuring me to add him to my bank account. I thought I was being paranoid. I thought I was a bad mother for not trusting him. But after hearing your story, I checked. He's been stealing from me for 6 months." She squeezed my hand. "You saved me. You saved my life." And at that moment, that's why I do this. That's why I share my story, even though it hurts. Even though it's embarrassing. Even though people sometimes look at me with pity or judgment, wondering how I could be stupid enough to let it happen. Because it can happen to anyone. Because abusers count on shame and silence. Because the only way to stop it is to talk about it. If you've ever been betrayed by family, if you've ever wondered if you're crazy for suspecting the people who are supposed to love you, if you've ever felt trapped by your own loyalty, I want you to know something. You're not alone. This happens. It's real. It's not your fault. Protect yourself. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Ask for help. And remember that surviving isn't the same as giving up. Sometimes survival is the bravest choice you can make. I survived. And if you're in a situation like mine, I hope you will too.